Zookeepers of Reddit. How are the animals acting differently now that there are no visitors to the zoo? As a zookeeper coordinator, I've been working at the now closed zoo almost every day for the past month. Animals that are free roaming, peacocks, iguanas, are more active and follow keepers around like they usually do with visitors. Most of the others don't show much change in behavior, although birds like swans and flamingos are using the edges of their habitats more. True, I haven't found much change in pets or those animals that are being well taken care of. I have noticed that this has mostly affected stray animals whose only source of food was by eating all they found on the streets/parks. Since nobody is around, they don't get food. I do my best by feeding like 10 to 12 stray dogs who come to eat at our farm. It makes my day watching them eat. Edit. Thanks for the suggestion to get them neutered. I'll pass the suggestion to my parents. What zoo is this? Are the iguanas friendly? If an iguana lets me, can I pet them? Most of our animals are happy as long as we can keep their routines, feeding times, etc. For some they need a little extra. We do public encounters with our koalas, wombats, and snakes among others, so we spend an hour or so a day cuddling and handling these animals to keep them happy. A few of our koalas really fret if they don't get their cuddles. Otherwise we just try to continue to spend time with animals that are expecting human interaction, and of course we can take things for walks around the place, like I'm sure you've seen at other zoos. Our wombats love a run and sniff, dingoes as well. Edit. Thanks all for the interest, questions, and remarks. Thanks also for the awards. I don't work at Australia Zoo for those of you asking. I do live on Kangaroo Island and our facility is pretty easy to find with some light searching. It is a privilege to work with wildlife each and every day, and it's something I take very seriously, but still appreciate the jokes and humor from everyone. If you have specific questions, it's perhaps best to DM me, Rip and Barks, otherwise they'll probably get lost in the comments. Thanks again. Your job is to cuddle koalas, and I'm stuck in home all alone. A few of our koalas really fret if they don't get their cuddles. Same. Edit. Thanks for the silver. Actually, you can check the live cam video feed and see for yourselves. San Diego Zoo live cams. Amazing. I just watched an ape on the other side of the world pick its nose live. It made my evening. I've been watching a polar bear sleep for an hour now. Thank you. Edit. There's baby elephants. In our local zoo the apes started to miss the visitors, so they brought in an artist who's now just painting in the empty monkey house, so the apes have someone to watch. Edit. Whoa, this blew up overnight. Europe. They could tell they missed the visitors because they became very bored and are much more excited about the keepers than usual. Apparently they watch the visitors as much as the other way around. The keepers now have to pay them more attention too, and they also do stuff like hide food for them as a game also. Sorry for the confusion. I'm not as a keeper myself, but I live close by the zoo, and it was in the local news and such. They need a TV in Sesame Street. Imagine being an aspiring artist who finally gets a job offer after years of practice, and when you get there they tell you to paint 4 monkeys. Due to temporary staff cuts, they no longer have the people to regularly walk the wombats. Some of the wombats are holding the keepers personally responsible. Imagine having a 20-kilogram chunk of muscle with big rodent teeth mad at you. Can confirm. I'm not happy with the current situation. I'll be a volunteer wombat walker. I'm just tryna see the penguins walk around the zoo in person, man. That's all I want. You can meet the penguins at the zoo where I used to work. It's just outside Chicago, if you happen to find yourself there after this quarantine. They get to choose whether or not to interact with you, of course, but they will generally choose to because you have fish, which is their favorite quality in a person. Edit. It's at Brookfield Zoo. I'm not sure how much it costs, but I think around $40. I've been told that morning encounters have less kids and more opportunities for adults to attract penguin attention without being rude. In the Magellan Strait, near the city of Punta Arenas, Chile, there is a colony of penguins. The place is called Magdalena Island. It hosts around 60k families, which range from 3 to 4 individuals. You have to take a 2-hour ferry to the island and then get an hour there, where you can choose between going to a lighthouse or stay within the trail and see penguins going about their penguin lives. They are cute and mischievous as duck. I worked as a guide there a couple of times and I'd see those little assholes biting tourists' fingers and even stealing purses and whatnot. They're awesome. I loved working those tours. I work on an activity farm. There is a 22-year-old Shire horse. He acts like a rig when there are customers around. With no customers, he's actually still a rig. That being said, he's still awesome. Edit. I've been asked what he does when there are customers. Basically, if he sees any customer feeding any other animal in the large barn where he hangs out in the day, he will stare at them and stomp his front hoof on the ground. That guarantees they look at him. If they don't immediately come over to feed him, he will start kicking the heavy metal bars that divide his area and the pen next door. This makes one hell of a noise, and he will keep it up, all whilst staring at the person with the food. If they feed him, then he rewards them by slobbering all over their hands as he takes the food. Also, at the end of the day, he is really good at telling the time. He knows when we close and what time he should be released from the barn and taken to the field/stables where he spends the night. If he isn't let out bang on time, he starts kicking the chiz out of the gate at the back of his pen. This is a big metal gate, and it sounds like someone playing a giant glockenspiel with a sledgehammer. He will keep this up until it is opened. Some customers are just scared to hand feed him. He is massive and his mouth is big enough to easily fit someone's hand in. Some customers come up to me with their bag of food and ask me if I will feed him because he keeps staring at me, but I'm a bit too nervous to feed him. I happily oblige. I love that ornery old bastard. There was a horse at the stables where my daughter used to ride. He would pretend like he needed to pee just to get out of having to make a go around the ring. The teacher would start counting and he would either start moving or pee. Lol. He was hilarious. Eater. Wow. I'm amazed by the upvotes. I think my most upvoted comment before this was like 250 people. Thanks. When I first read it, I thought he acted like a duck. And I'm like, how could he act like a duck? I'd like to see that. Now I'm not sure I'll ever see a horse act like a duck. My wife works at the gift shop for our zoo, and the other day we had to go move some stuff around in the store because due to some heavy rains, it had flooded a bit. Of course we took a lap around the empty park, other than the keepers and few maintenance workers, and found that all the animals were really active and playful. A lot of them seemed really curious about us too. I'm sure they get used to seeing crowds every day and were starving for attention. Or maybe 2 people is a more manageable number to approach. If I see 1 cat on a footpath, I'm going to try and make a new friend. If I see 12, I'm going to cross the road to avoid them. I've been in a zoo early when no one else was around, and the animals were all super active and engaging. Not as a keeper, but I hear the lions a lot more from my house now. Weirdly reassuring to wake up to and realize the world is still going on. Wait, what? Do you live on the plains of Africa, next to the GW Zoo, or do you own lions? For a lot of our animals, having the ability to interact with guests is actually extremely important. Even for primates to be able to play with kids through the glass, they are missing out on a lot of enrichment. Guests keep a lot of the monkeys entertained. I watch our guests all day long show our marmosets and capuchin selfie cameras, and they love to see their reflection. Guests will also show videos on their phones to animals, and the monkeys totally enjoy it. We have a rescue cockatoo named Ro who sings row 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 your boat to guests. When little kids dance and sing it to her, she gets really excited and feeds off their energy. So do our other cockatoos on exhibit. But now without guests to show off for, every now and then when it's quiet we'll hear her start row row row. And then she stop and huffs a bit and gets really quiet and sad because she has no one to sing to. Some of our animals really miss having kids to show off for. You also have to remember that animals in zoos for the most part have grown up totally accustomed to being around people 24/7. They're not wild animals at all really. They've grown up in a very different social dynamic. Quite a few animals get noticeably depressed in the winter months every year when we have few guests, and then perk up in the spring when we get busy. Edit. In case anyone wants to see Ro, here's a video a person found floating around on the internet. Of any chance you could live a stream Ro and see if she'll sing. I'll happily be her audience. That cockatoo story might be the saddest thing I've heard for a long time. My girlfriend is a zookeeper and animal behaviorist. She says their animals are becoming stressed. One of their African grey bads has been plucking his own feathers. She also mentioned that, because they can't touch many of the animals due to the virus potentially spreading to another zookeeper, many of the animals are looking and acting depressive, not eating well, etc. That's it everyone, you're making the bird sad. Y'all are in timeout. God damn it, this made me sad. I'm terrified of birds, but they still need love too, damn it. The 2 pygmy hippos, 6 bison, giant anteater, and lowland tapir I took care of. I'm temporarily laid off, didn't have any change in behavior. Sulcatus are still owls. How are sulcatus owls? Yeah, I have only met friendly sulcatus. They are destructive though. I'm an aquarium keeper, and I've certainly noticed a change. Fish are not as stressed as they used to be, as there are no longer children stomping around and banging on glass screaming Nemo, Nemo, it's Nemo at every clone fish. We brought some of our younger penguins down to let them watch the fish, and they were intrigued but confused as to why they couldn't catch them through the glass. Our octopus has become much more friendly as well, and instead of hiding all day from people, enjoys playing with small baby toys or solving food puzzles. It's been nice. I wish there were guidelines people had to sign to behave at zoos before entering, but at the same time, they are the lifeline we so desperately need to keep functioning. Edit. This post has gotten more love than any other post I have ever made, so I'm going to capitalize on it. Now more than ever, zoos and zoo animals need your help. I understand that it is a time of financial disparity for a lot of people, myself included, but we as humans will be fine and overcome this. Those who cannot are the species we help to conserve it as are accredited facilities. Without people having interest in wildlife, zoos themselves could now face extinction. If you have a local zoo or a zoo you just adore, please donate. Something as small as a pizza for the keepers of your favorite animals, or a donation the price of general admittance, all the way up to buying a membership or making a significant donation, goes so far to help us stay employed and caring for all our individuals. We are doing our best during this crisis to bring you the best experience we can, so you can social distance too. If you like what you see and have the ability, you can be sure that your donation is appreciated by every single keeper working through this time. Fellow octopus keeper here. Without the crowd scaring her into her cave, our GPO has gotten straight up feisty. She's so active, I've encouraged our parrot keepers to go past her when taking the birds on walks, just for a little extra visual stimulation. She's got quite the love affair with one of the cockatoos. Maybe it's time to set up a barrier so the little jizzes can't get that close. The pandas could finally get it on. 10 years they have been waiting for people to leave them alone. Imagine waiting for privacy for 10 years, finally get some, only to have pictures of you getting it on plastered all over the internet nighttimes.com. Finally a thread I can answer. Not a whole lot of change, but animals definitely missing out some enrichment of seeing guests, especially the otters that follow the kids in the glade underwater. Takin, maned wolves, bison, gibbons, bopies, lions, etc. all are about the same. Some of our animals that are skittish have been standing closer to the fence where guests usually are. Zebras, gazelle, which is nice. It's kinda this weird balance of being both more and less stressed. On the one side, I don't have to worry about keeper talks or BTS tours and I have more time to get everything done and spend more time with animals. On the other side we are skeleton crewed and there's less of us to care for the whole zoo, so I'm working a lot more in areas I don't usually cover as often. There's one kangaroo that still tries to box me, while the emu is shifting. The one peacock still really doesn't like taking his medications. Of course I have noticed that the crows in the city are behaving a bit differently as well, and are being a lot braver lol. I've taken to feeding the birds since this whole thing started, and the crows used to be pretty okay with the seagulls barreling in and talking food cause there was always more than enough. Now I see crows scouting and scooping up multiple pieces of food at a time to bring wherever they are hiding the flock, risking getting snapped at by rabid seagulls. I would only rarely see crows take the food away, and it was always after they'd eaten plenty. Now 9/10 times they're squirreling it away. Legit the crows 100%. I was doing hill sprints 2 days ago. Every time I walk down the hill the crow keeps flying to me and walking with me while keeping like 5 yards away from me. He would watch me run, and then when I was done he followed me all the way to the apartment garage where he was walking behind me again, but didn't come in. I'm late to the thread, so I'm sure this will get buried, but I work for a very large, very busy as a zoo. I work with the ambler animals, so they are animals that are very used to the public. Pretty much like what everyone else has said, the animals are mostly confused that there aren't any people. Our petting zoo animals in particular are super needy. The second they see or hear us, they all come running over and start crying for attention. We are trying to give all the animals as much attention as possible, but we are down to a bare bones crew, so it's not as much as we would like. What I wanted to add, though, because I think it's incredibly interesting, is that we are collecting fecal samples from some of the animals to be tested for cortisol levels, which is a pretty good indicator of stress levels. That way, when guests come back, we can take samples for comparison to see how much guests impact stress. I think it's really cool that we are taking this opportunity to see what we can learn about how guests impact the animals, and to see if there are potentially things we can do even better to improve the lives of the animals in our care. We were really hoping to do some behavioral studies too about things like activity levels, amount of the enclosure being utilized, etc. that are also important considerations for their welfare, but unfortunately we just don't have the time or staffing. This is super cool. It's awesome that you're making the best of this situation to learn more. I'm super fascinated with this idea. I find the cortisol thing very interesting. I was just thinking about a few other areas that could be studied due to changes related to handling COVID-19. It reminds me of how after 9/11, there was an unprecedented period with zero airline traffic, and it allowed scientists to study climate effects of large aircraft. We are in a similar situation, and while it sucks, it seems there could be some important data to be gained from the event. Not as a keeper here, but there was a story on the local news that the apes at the local zoo are apparently very bored because they don't have any people doing stupid things to watch anymore. I guess we are the zoo. Before this thread it never occurred to me that the animals also observe us. The walruses are masturbating furiously. Great, I always miss the best things. This reminded me to put tape over my webcam. I take care of fish, but mostly jellyfish. The jellies don't give a single duck. It's been nice for me though, because I can turn most of their display lights off so less algae grows, and I have to do less scrubbing. My actual fish don't care. The beluga whales were screeching at the cleaning crew the other day, which was hilarious. I don't work with the whales, but it seems like they enjoy, or are at least interested in, seeing others around. Do jellies care if there's light, as long as they're fed? I love belugas. The one at Coney Island used to like to pop up at its window and scare my little brother. Horse trainer / barn manager here. My farm has 46 horses, about half are privately owned and boarded with us. Like most farms across the country, we are completely shut down to all but essential staff. The horses are mostly pretty happy to eat, hang out, and do horse things. We keep our horses turned out 24/7, which helps them remain healthy, happy, moving, and socializing. They are starting to lose muscling at this point, with being worked / ridden. Months or years of conditioning just disappearing by the day. But it will come back once they are all in work again. But I can tell that they are missing human interaction. My personal riding horse was giving me the cold shoulder yesterday, probably because of the lack of attention. I have been trying to give the boarded horses extra attention. I'm sure their owners are missing them terribly right now. They all seem to lean in a little more when I brush them these days. Edited to add the customary thank you to the kind Redditor for the award. My first. It made my day, nay, my week. Pun intended. Thank you. This fascinates me. My family had horses for a while when I was young. They definitely all have their own personalities. Not as a keeper, but just today I read a news article from my parents' home country in the Caribbean. that a 100-year-old turtle finally laid eggs at the zoo because there was no foot traffic. Yeah, sorry to burst that bubble, but she has been gravid, pregnant, for a while, and was gonna lay those eggs. Reptiles don't grow an egg every day like a bird, they grow them in a big batch all at once, and it takes several weeks to months from the time of mating to the time they are laid. They can sometimes reabsorb them early on if they aren't getting enough resources, but once they ovulate the eggs are coming out, people or no, or the animal will die from being egg-bound. Not as a keeper, but I work in a preschool that has a guinea pig. I got to bring him home, since we shut down, and has got a huge personality. The room has and is usually loud at school, so I think has enjoying the quiet time and really flourishing. Edit. Thank you all for your concerns. I plan to speak with my supervisors about what we can do to make sure Mohawk, guinea pig, has a better life. I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot about guinea pigs and I appreciate your resources. As for my rabbit, him and the guinea pig do not share a cage, haha. My rabbit is free roam and the guinea pig is in his 2-story cage. I've only let them have a few supervised visits together, but they both seem to enjoy the company. It is said to be cruel to keep a guinea pig by itself. Classroom pets are never a good idea. Being around screaming kids all day, not having a friend to be with, being moved around a lot. Kids could easily hurt them as well. The penguins are trying to escape to Madagascar more often. Well boys, we did it. Captivity in zoos is no more. The majority of our display birds could care less. However, our birds that do flights outside or routinely meet guests and do more interactive behaviors with the public have definitely noticed, and they are not cool with there being no guests around. Of course I can only guess, and while this is a bit anthropomorphic, I don't think they understand the change and seem somewhat hesitant to enter a new environment to them as we try to maintain their behavioral skills. One of them, of course, who is also excited to fly, is now always looking around. Pretty sure she expects 450 to 100 people to be watching her. I have a friend with a parrot, and I'm convinced that little bossy Duckaloo's having an audience. He is a complete attention whore. If he regularly had a huge audience, he'd miss it if it suddenly disappeared. Probably. There's a bit of a balance of different behaviors that is kinda interesting. With no visitors, there is more time for enrichment, to get more creative with said enrichment, trialing new things, and exposure to enrichment that has to be supervised, which the animals are loving. Then there are certain animals that do seem to miss having public around. Our younger, 5 years old, African penguins are really seeming to miss being able to swim at the glap and interact with people. Higher intelligent animals, we have had to come up with new interactions. Lots of new training going on because they are missing the variety and variability of interactions with the public. The snakes don't give a duck though, typical snakes, hahaha, but I really love that. How are the elephants doing? Also the lions and the tigers. Just wondering. Can confirm, snakes don't give a duck about human interaction. I work at a very well-known and heavily visited zoo. I work with ambassador animals and it's nice to get a chance to take animals to areas of the zoo they won't normally get a chance to go to because of traffic, etc. But the free-ranging geese, man, they are getting mean and territorial. Literal bridge trolls. They might have the hardest time adjusting when all the people come back and they can't control every pathway. Typical geese behavior. From the 3 at my local park that had to be locked in a pen because when free they choose a path and attacked everything coming on their turf, up to cars, not to mention kids, dogs and more. Edit. Heh. My most upvoted comment is about murderous geese. Geese are so mean, lmao. One time when I was in middle school, I was riding my bike near a pond and there was a turtle in the road. I went to get it and put it near the pond it was heading towards, and this meaner goose saw me from the field on the other side of the road. It was a pretty far distance, I thought, but it starts hauling away faster than it looked like it could go, furiously hissing at me the whole way. Picked up the turtle and sprinted to the pond. Stupid goose even tried to chase me for a little bit after I got on my bike. They were everywhere near my school too, and they would sometimes get near the outdoor track after school when it wasn't crowded and hiss at people running. Geese are jerks. Oh, shiz, the animals. I'll be right back. Knew I was forgetting something. My granddad's farm. Stray dogs, like 12 of them, come for lunch and dinner to our farm daily. Before also they used to come, but it wasn't this regular. Nowadays, because of the lockdown, stray dogs don't have a stable food source which they previously had, as there were people on the streets who were kind enough to feed those animals. They come to our farm, and we feed them daily. 8 of those 12 are little cute puppies, and watching them eat makes my whole day. Everybody should at least feed one stray animal in these times. Those animals will remember you forever. You should get them fixed if you have a chance. Yes, please consider spaying and neutering them. Many cities have low-cost spay/neuter options that even work for the TNR animals. Trap, neuter, release. Feeding them makes all our souls feel happier, but it sadly isn't helping the stray and feral animal problem. We are enjoying a bit of privacy, actually. Gonna feed anyone else to tigers while no one is around. I'm on day 25 of working at a closed zoo. I work with great apes, and their behavior has changed a bit. They are generally very interactive with the public, so they are seeking even more attention than usual from us. Some of them were suspicious at first of the overwhelming silence outside. Now they were climbing up high and scanning the area looking for everyone. Edit: I forgot to mention the wild animals. We are in a much larger park, and wild animals wander in all the time, but always scatter when the crowds roll in. Now, there's bucks just walking around, raccoons and foxes out in the middle of the day, and the squirrels. My god, the squirrels. And the squirrels. My god, the squirrels. Is the start of a movie I hope to be watching soon. If they aren't digging the silence, maybe y'all can take the opportunity to find out what kind of music they like. I would really like to see footage of a Keeper 8 dance party. We turn them off to save power/s. Just the giraffes. I've been watching the Diranga zoo cams, and the seals definitely keep trying to look through the glass for people, while the tigers will pace for 40 minutes straight in front of the viewing window. Ha hey, Diranga. I went running by there, and it was oddly quiet. There's normally a bit more ruckus. I don't work at a zoo, but the horse farm I manage, the horses won't leave me alone while I'm in their pastures. Normally they'll come up to say hi and get a nose kiss, but now I can't get anything done cause they want all of my attention. Same. The first few days they seemed almost relieved, and they seemed to enjoy the break. Now they're practically trying to get in my car with me when I leave to go home. Lol. Large public aquarium. It's been only a little different for them. A few of the more timid animals are out and about a little more frequently than usual, or changing their active hours. The giant Pacific octopus, for example. I expected to see more change in the touch tank areas. Horseshoe crabs don't notice or care, which is expected, but the white-spotted bamboo sharks are also not really changing their behavior really either, which is good to see. We have cleaner shrimp that have to have more regular food because they're not grooming people anymore, but other than that, it's just another shrimp day. I had to reread the shrimp part a couple of times because I thought you were saying you had less dirty shrimp that needed more food, and my brain was like, what? Why? Grooming people? Explain. At the Denver Zoo, the wolves are throwing a massive kegger, the pandas are doing blow-off panda hookahs, the snakes in the reptile house are tying themselves in knots, the giraffes are providing lookout for when the occasional worker strolls by, the bears are piling up their supply of charm next to the patch of buckwheat, the rabbits will not stop ducking, the monkeys have somehow gotten a hold of typewriters and are talking about some English dude with a goatee, the zebras have taken to paint their stripes different colors and posing for bubblegum ads. Seriously, send us condoms for these rabbits. Birth control pills. IUDs. Plan B, Jesus. Something. We are drowning in newborn rabbits over here. Thanks for the silver, kind stranger. Oh, I'm glad they're finally having some fun. They don't usually get much. HE Alliance, why are you cool cat s and kittens? I read that in her voice, shudder. The monkeys have no one to throw poo at or watch them masturbate. This comment brings back memories. Chat roulette mostly. As a player of Zoo Tycoon who always had such a failing zoo that it was always practically empty, I can assure you that the lions get very excited when they're released from their cages. The cleaning crew do not like this as much. I love animals, but growing up I'd do the money cheat and create a sort of I don't even know, death trap? With a bunch of predators in the middle with the lowest fence you could get, and just radiating further and further out with a bunch of prey. And unpausing gazelle 23 is not happy with its exhibit. Yeah, it's getting gnawed on by a ducking lion. Was like one of the Purge movies with a bunch of animals. I love animals, but goddamn that game was fun. Probably gonna get buried, but you can go to explore or view live animal camps from zoos and sanctuaries all over the world. Not a zoo, but my dog is a therapy dog. As in I'm a therapist, and she comes to work with me and gets cuddles from my clients. But since I'm doing telehealth she still comes to work with me but nobody else shows up. She does a lot of crying. Cuddles from me doesn't seem to matter. Edit you guys, she's okay. Yes, she misses her friends. I miss seeing them in my office too. But she gets to spend all day with me, goes on many long walks, has a bestie dog friend at home, and is in general spoiled rotten. I think she needs a therapy dog of her own. I'm not a zookeeper, but I just wanted to share that Prague Zoo, 5th best zoo in the world I believe, is documenting the animals and their behavior during quarantine on their new channel called Glimpses from the Zoo, and some of them are truly incredible. Madagascar, the film, was the first thing that popped into my head reading this. I hope it's something like this. Yeah, to be. Well, the pandas are getting their duck on, apparently. Apparently they just wanted some solitude. Who would have guessed it? Former keeper who worked at a zoo that closed during the winter. Most animals keep doing their thing and don't really notice the lack of people. However, petting zoo animals definitely get more excited when keepers come in. I'm a full-time zookeeper and it's been difficult since we had to lay off all our seasonal / part-time help. More work for those of us still there, but the animals are all still getting top-notch care. We've been able to take them out to new places they don't get to when guests are around. Like taking our porcupine to the manatee building and walking a cheetah past the rhinos. I think it's fun for them, but I haven't seen any animals acting differently. Walking the cheetah past the rhino? Isn't that showing him where to find a nice meal, if he gets a chance? A lot of them probably don't notice or care anything in the reptile house, for instance. I have to imagine animals like great apes and elephants are noticing and having some kind of reaction. I wouldn't be so sure of that. Reptiles are smarter than people think. My bearded dragon's behavior in my classroom at school versus her behavior in my apt after a week of general quiet without a bunch of loud teenagers is pretty noticeable. Definitely is more interactive / friendly, and she definitely eats better. In the zoo of Antwerp they noticed that the chimps are interacting much more with each other now they don't have people to interact with, and a fish called Joss came much closer to the edge of his aquarium. The giraffe cam is full of rhinos. Really made me stop for a second. There's actually a tiger at the Bronx Zoo, by me, that is confirmed to have COVID, so perhaps not all too different than us people. Well, I'm currently stuck at home for the time being, but I've been in touch with some coworkers. Ultimately, the changes in behavior vary depending on how conscious each animal was of the guests to begin with, so for many there isn't too much change. Most of our exhibits are open during the winter when no one regularly visits, so a lot of them are used to periods where guests don't arrive, just not at this time of year. I'm sure our orangutans and some of the other apes have noticed, because they love to people watch and interact with the guests, but they are used to slow periods already. As for who is affected the most, I would say the geese around the zoo are probably the most upset by the change, since there aren't any scraps around to steal. That said, while our animals are still doing well, the biggest thing to worry about right now is funding. For many zoos, this time of year is critical for making money that will go to feed and supply our animals with the care they need for the year to come. With these closings, many zoos are likely to be struggling, especially if this continues. Meanwhile, many zoos are trying to find ways to interact and inform guests even still during this crisis. I recommend everyone take the time to check out their local zoo to see what streams or activities are being made available, and please make sure to donate if you can. A donation at a time like this can really help our animals. Penguin tour groups are happening. Chicago Street, Louis, Detroit, Tampa. Are penguins particularly curious animals, or are they chosen to roam because they are somewhat easy to wrangle on land? Both. They can't run fast, and they enjoy it. Extremely curious. And they have excellent eyesight, so they enjoy watching other animals. They're basically cats with a laser pointer. Not as a keeper, but my aunt works as one at a nationally acclaimed zoo. She said they aren't acting that much different. However, a lot of zoos are short on funding and are struggling to pay their employees. If you're an avid zoo goer like I am, renew your membership if they have one, or make a donation. We've all had memories of going to the zoo as a kid, and in these tough times, some zoos might go under. Please try to help preserve the magic zoos brought to us as children. Hear hear. Totally agree. Thanks for posting this. I'm an educator at ANAZA, American AOC of Zoos and Aquariums institution, and while our animal care team seems to be safe for now, I might get ours cut / furloughed / laid off next month. One of our emus loves everyone and makes friends with any new keepers who visit him, and so by extension, loves having guests around. With the zoo being closed, he became quite morose for a few days, not acting anything like his usually happy self, because all the new friends he makes every day were gone. So his keepers began asking people from other departments to stop by, take pictures, point him out, basically act like he's the center of attention. The hilarious little diva has been loving it. The chimpanzees have progressed to the Bronze Age. In part of a large cat rescue looking after mostly ex-circus lions, tigers and panthers that were abused and made to perform for years, we've noticed that when there are visitors about, the same environment it created when they were in the circus, lots of people and noise, pictures being taken of them, loud kids etc. And because of this, the cats are better behaved, because they were treated roughly. They know, or knew, that bad behavior in front of large crowds used to mean they would get beaten or starved later on as punishment. It's small change and you certainly won't know unless you spent a lot of time around them, but it's certainly interesting. They also only eat Carol's husband away from prying eyes. I work at one of the most popular zoos in the UK, and because of that one of the largest. I'm working from gone right now, so I can't comment firsthand, but my co-workers are saying how curious the animals are. Every person that walk by they are very interested in. On a side note, I always assumed an empty zoo would be a much better place for the animals, and would be much more enjoyable for the keepers. However, when I asked a keeper friend of mine, she said she feels like she's lost part of her purpose without visitors. The sea lions I work with miss watching guests in the underwater tunnel. Sea otters not as much. The wolves don't really have any change in behavior. They get enough interaction from us handlers when we take them for walks, or brush them, or sit in their enclosure to chill. Hopefully we can get private tours up and running soon, so we can have a steady flow of donations. It goes to the good boys and girls. Our city zoo is closed for visitors. However, all the routine feeding activities are in place. Looks like some animals found it weird that there are no people around. The other day a fully grown white tiger started jumping like a puppy when he saw a few of us after 2 weeks of solitude. That was a scene. I work at an animal shelter. Now only the people they like are around. They're all much less stressed. Most of our animals are more relaxed than they are with big crowds, or are acting mostly like they usually do. We have 2 bears that like to people watch, so they are definitely missing that source of entertainment, but are otherwise pretty normal. The biggest difference is that our pair of bald eagles mated for the first time in the decade that they've been housed together. We don't intentionally breed our animals, so there isn't a good nesting spot in their enclosure, but they just scraped out a divot and laid 2 eggs in it. However, neither are incubating the eggs, and we don't have breeding permits for them, so we can't keep the eggs. Very unpopular with our visitors. The geese that nest on the property are also getting extra territorial and threatening us keepers a lot more. Of course they are. Peace was never an option. Sharks are still sharking. My sea turtle though is being exceptionally well behaved with divers. A rare treat. Most are fine. We are trying to make the days as normal as possible, shifting and cleaning at more or less the same times, taking more time with animals that are used to a lot of public interaction, helping hand feed the petting zoo animals, taking out the education animals. I'm actually surprised how well the primates are doing, more so because they are used to the attention from the other staff that are no longer here. The only reaction I've seen, myself and several keepers and maintenance crew were standing outside one of the cat enclosures, and when she came out she looked startled that there was a group of people there. The zoo we go to has been taking various animals for a walkabout around the zoo to meet other animals safe for them, but also so the animals can see what is causing all the noise they hear. They say it has reduced the animals' stress. Obviously, they are not taking tigers for a walk, but I think it's a great idea. I work with a lot of geriatric animals at the zoo, so it's not surprising that they have become a lot more relaxed since we closed to the public. Our Arctic fox spends a lot more of his time basking in the sun instead of spending time in his back holding area trying to avoid screaming children. Control your children at the zoo please. I was really hoping to see the gorillas are learning. It's harder to keep them in their pens. It's unlike anything I have ever seen. They communicate and work together to seemingly try to escape. Pandas are having sex now. Late to the party. Depends on the species and even the individual animal. The kangaroos and wallabies who live in our walk-through enclosure are loving the free roaming throughout the day and not having to stay off the paths. This is making finding them more difficult as they are moving away from their normal rest spots. This goes for all animals in interactive enclosures actually. Some of the birds are missing the attention. The wild ravens and seagulls are a bit upset about the lack of easy to steal food. The elephants are enjoying being able to come out for walks at any time during the day as opposed to in the morning before opening. Aggregating some of the zoo webcams mentioned in this free to add more please. The parrots miss the crowds. They love flirting with the guests and now fear demanding a lot more attention from us. The tigers are more relaxed because we have been able to do a lot more fun stuff. The fish are a lot more needy surprisingly. Lol. I'm an animal conservationist and work daily in a closed zoo. We observed animals at our zoo are going out more instead of wallowing in their covered homes. It seems the less attention on them has caused unusual but good behavior. We've recorded that they consume more food than usual. Oh, and they duck more. I'm a zookeeper that works with strictly ambered animals that are used to seeing people up close. We are trying to spend as much time with each one to make sure they are getting lots of mental stimulation. We've been bringing a raptor, one at a time, in our office too, just to hang out each day. So far the animals under my care are all doing perfect. It's the most I can hope for. Now as zookeepers on the other hand, it is tough. No volunteers, staff segregated to minimize exposure. It's going to be a long road. I'm jealous of the keepers that have the extra time to deep clean and take their animals on leisurely strolls around the zoo. I'm working non-stop for 11 hours a day most days. I'm just thankful we are keeping our jobs. I would be lost without my animal coworkers. A lot of the animals have noticed. We compare it to having 300 channels of cable TV to suddenly 10 channels. The apes, cats, and birds probably notice the most and get excited when any of us walk by. We actually have our firm instructions to take a regular walk around our big cat area because one of the snow leopards is sad from the lack of people calling him handsome daily. The spiders are building larger webs than usual. The cockroaches and vermin are getting bigger, and the maggots are multiplying. Oh boy, my apartment needs to get cleaned. I'm an aquarist at an aquarium, not zoo, but my fish seem mostly the same. I'm enjoying this time to be able to work on updates and renovations to exhibits that I sometimes can't do because we would be open to the public and in my workspace. We've had penguins and other animals walking around meeting many of our animals and filming their interactions, which has been awesome. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome dude. Thanks for watching.